Welcome to our channel. Embark on a journey through our video series dedicated to comprehensively covering the content of the CITB book, Health, Safety and Environment Test for Managers and Professionals. Throughout these videos, we delve into the crucial topics outlined in the book. Section A, Legal and Management. Section B, Occupational Health, Well-being and Welfare. Section C, General Safety. Section D, High-risk activities. Section E, Environment. Section F, Specialist activities. In this particular video, we focus on Section C, 12 Fire Prevention and Control. For your convenience, a link in the top right corner of the video allows easy navigation through the entire series. We are certain that by engaging with this video series, you will be thoroughly equipped to effectively handle your CSCS card. Keep in mind, the CSCS test typically lasts around 45 minutes, and scoring at least 45 out of 50 questions correctly is required to pass. Before we delve into the content, please show your support by liking and subscribing. Your support means a lot to us. Let's embark on this learning journey together.
When emergency planning is being conducted on site, which two of the following must be in place to ensure compliance with the Regulatory Reform Fire Safety Order 2005? A fire risk assessment that is updated on a monthly basis. A fully revised hot work risk assessment and permit. A relevant person to monitor effective evacuation procedures. A fire risk assessment that is updated to reflect site changes. An appointed responsible person who controls the premises. What controls must be in place when work is taking place in a corridor adjacent to an emergency escape route? Tools, equipment and materials are not blocking the route. All tools and equipment are stored outside the exit doors. Fire detection is switched off when working in that area. Only spark-proof tools are stored and used within that area. If a fire broke out in a diesel container, what class of fire would it be? Class A, Class B, Class C, Class D. For a responsible person, what does the Regulatory Reform Fire Safety Order 2005 state will be their main responsibility on site? Ensure that a suitable fire risk assessment is carried out and reviewed when necessary. Extinguish small fires that occur on site using fire extinguishers and record them. Ensure that the construction phase of the project meets current fire regulations. Carry out all maintenance and repairs to all firefighting equipment stored on site. Under the Regulatory Reform Fire Safety Order 2005, which one of the following must be a priority on a construction site? A fire risk assessment that is regularly reviewed. Sufficient and well-maintained firefighting equipment. The appointment of a fire warden for every 20 workers. Suitable and fire-rated escape doors and routes. During the design phase of a large construction project, who should contact the fire and rescue service and why? The principal contractor after work has started due to there being no risk beforehand. The principal designer to let them know about access requirements and arrangements. The appointed person after the fire risk assessment has been completed and signed off. The client to continually provide online updates as the project begins and continues. Who is responsible for ensuring that a site-specific fire risk assessment is carried out? The safety manager in liaison with the fire and rescue service. Any competent person nominated by the responsible person. The principal contractor as they understand the risks. Anyone as long as it is reviewed and signed off by the client. What is the first step of a fire risk assessment? Remove the risk. Evaluate the risk. Identify the hazards. Identify the people at risk. When completing a fire risk assessment for a new build project, it is important to consider which two of the following: the types of construction materials being used, the carbon footprint of the construction site, the location of the nearest waste disposal site, additional charging units for electric vehicles, how close it is to other nearby buildings. Basic fire risk assessment principles are the same on all projects, but there are different elements to consider for new builds. Which one of the following is a consideration? Suitable training for all workers in the use of fire equipment. All equipment on site being battery-powered or electric. The marking and communicating of escape routes. The type of construction materials that will be used. For a fire risk assessment to be legally compliant, it must be reliable and comprehensive, realistic and robust, suitable and sufficient, clear and factual. When carrying out a fire risk assessment on site, which of the following would not help with evaluating the risk of a fire occurring? Identifying any potential ignition and heat sources on site. Checking which workers on site have had fire awareness training. Having a list of all the plant, equipment and fuel being used on site. Knowing where building materials have been purchased from. On large, complex projects, it is important to periodically review the fire risk assessment. Identify one of the following situations where you do not need to review it. When the project progresses and changes, affecting the evacuation procedures. When there are more people on site who have a longer distance to travel to safety. When site conditions change as the project progresses, altering the fire risks. When the main contractor has adjusted schedules to fit around delivery of materials. A joinery apprentice with a hearing impairment has started on site. In relation to fire safety controls, what must be actioned? Fire extinguisher training to be carried out as soon as possible. A site induction to highlight the fire controls and processes in place. A review of the fire risk assessment to account for their disability. Reading, signing and returning the fire risk assessment to their supervisor. Which one of the following is not a requirement for fire extinguishers on construction sites? That they are located at identifiable fire points. That they are appropriate for the risks on site. That they are competently serviced and maintained. That they are replaced every 12 months. A fire has broken out in a confined space. If a carbon dioxide extinguisher was used to put out the fire, the primary risk is that it would cause a chemical reaction, reduce visibility significantly, have no effect on the fire, reduce the level of oxygen. Which two of the following must be carried out to ensure that fire extinguishers are inspected and maintained? Any extinguishers with a plastic body manufactured after 2002 must be replaced as soon as practicably possible. There must be an appropriate scheme in place to ensure that extinguishers are regularly checked and maintained. The engineer must ask to see a copy of the certificate of purchase before servicing any extinguishers. The responsible person must ensure that a fire logbook is kept to record all events involving extinguishers. Any maintenance and checking of extinguishers must be carried out and recorded by the appointed fire warden. It is essential that workers who have been chosen to operate fire extinguishers in an emergency are capable of lifting the extinguishers, over the age of 25 and physically fit, able to maintain the equipment, suitably trained in their correct use. A dry powder fire extinguisher extinguishes Class B fires by smothering the whole fire and starving it of oxygen, forming a barrier of fine powder against other sources of ignition, slowly cooling the fire with the fine crystal powder elements, creating a dust cloud that absorbs heat and settles over the fire. On a complex construction site, it is good practice for the responsible person to appoint which other fire safety related role: Fire Safety Supervisor, Fire Safety Coordinator, Fire Safety Manager, Fire Safety Director. A responsibility of a site's appointed fire safety coordinator is to use a fire extinguisher and manage the clean-up afterwards, implement and manage all of the site's hot work permits, ensure that they have trained all fire wardens in their duties, assist in implementing the fire safety and evacuation plan. On a complex construction project, which one of the following is considered good practice when it comes to appointing additional fire wardens? 3, which is the requirement set under the Regulatory Reform Fire Safety Order 2005. It depends on the layout and the number of people working on the site. 5, which is the requirement set under the Construction, Design and Management Regulations 2015. To ensure that they clearly understand the risks, there must be as few as possible. When fire safety coordinators are carrying out their duties, which 2 actions must they perform to be legally compliant? Liaise with the fire and rescue services in the event of a fire. Complete a daily roll call to account for all workers on site. Keep records of all inspections, tests and fire drills. Ensure that all fire extinguishers on site are tested weekly. Conduct weekly inspections of the storage of hazardous substances. When setting up a large construction project and developing emergency procedures for the site, which one of the following services or organisations should be invited to site to support this? Health and Safety Executive to check and ensure that regulations are followed. Local authority to conduct environmental surveys and identify control measures. Fire and Rescue Service to identify water sources and access requirements. Local police to advise on current crime trends and appropriate security measures. There has been a major change to the site layout, and the responsible person has reviewed the fire risk assessment. Following this, the Fire Safety Coordinator must then first review the fire extinguisher numbers, emergency signage positions, fire safety and evacuation plan, emergency mobile phone coverage. In the event of a fire on site, how can a fire safety coordinator ensure the safe evacuation of visitors? Prevent visitors coming onto site, but if they must visit, ensure that safe areas are established. Have arrangements in place to log visitors in and out so that they can be located quickly. Issue all visitors with high visibility clothing and visitor badges so that they are easily identified. Create a buddy system so that there is always someone with visitors who knows the fire procedure. A hot work permit has been issued for a large timber frame project. For each day that the permit is in force, what is the minimum amount of time required between the hot work ending and the site closing? 30 minutes, 1 hour, 90 minutes, 2 hours. Prior to a hot work activity being undertaken within a confined space and following the completion of the risk assessment, what else must be done before work can start? Thoroughly ventilating for 48 hours to remove any flammable or explosive gases. Installing additional temporary ventilation and making a fire extinguisher available. Testing the atmosphere to confirm that no flammable or explosive gases are present. Getting appointed subcontractors to review their own safety procedures and permits. Hot work tasks taking place on a timber-framed building must stop at least 2 hours before the site closes. The main reason for this is to allow enough time to monitor the site for any signs of fire before the area is vacated. Fix any deformities if the timber structure has distorted from the heat. Secure the site by tidying up and locking away the tools and equipment. Ensure that the work does not overrun and impact the legal working hours. Which one of the following would not normally be included in a hot work permit? The proposed start time and duration of the work activity. Instructions on checking adjacent hidden locations for combustible materials. A description of the planned work activity and its location. Information about the density content of the materials being worked on. Which of the following is not a requirement for a site compound where liquefied petroleum gas (LPG) containers are stored? It is on a level base of compacted earth, concrete or paving slabs. It is surrounded by a secure chain fence that is at least 1.8 metres high. It has sufficient shelter to prevent container exposure to extreme weather. It has signs displayed that prohibit the operation of plant in the area. There is no suitable external storage for highly flammable materials on site. When would it be acceptable to store these within a building? If they are in a secure, fire-proofed storeroom that has fire detection and suppression systems installed. If materials will be used within a week of purchase. If they are in a lockable room away from the main part of the building and only one person has access. If minimum quantities required are exceeded on site. Liquefied petroleum gas (LPG) cylinders, apart from those that are used to provide fuel for powered plant, must never be placed on their side during use because they would give a faulty reading on the contents gauge, resulting in flashback. Air could be drawn into the cylinder, creating a dangerous mixture of gases. Gas levels would be too low and a torch would not burn correctly. The gas could escape from the cylinder, creating a safety hazard. Sometimes it is necessary to store bulk quantities of highly flammable substances on site. In these circumstances, the storage area must be within a bund with a capacity greater than 100% of the total contents stored. Positioned next to water sources for fire extinguishing purposes. Equipped with a quantity of absorbent material to soak up any spilt liquid. Located as close as possible to the site office for security reasons. When using liquefied petroleum gas (LPG) cylinders to carry out hot works on site, it is important to follow which two procedures? Keep all types of gas cylinder together in one area. Turn off cylinder valves before connecting any equipment. Check cylinders and associated equipment before use. Ensure that all cylinders are horizontal to aid release of gas. Maximize the number of gas cylinders on site at one time. Which one of the following statements is false regarding liquefied petroleum gas (LPG)? LPG can create a large vapor cloud of flammable gas when spilled, which is capable of ignition from some distance away. LPG cylinders that are not being used must be stored outside the site perimeter in a sealed, secure, non-combustible unit. LPG is a colourless, odourless liquid that floats on water, which vaporizes to form a gas that is heavier than air. LPG cylinders and regulators used to heat welfare facilities must be kept outside and be piped in using rigid copper pipes. Who must be identified within the construction phase plan and the fire risk assessment? The principal contractor's site manager. The responsible person. The health and safety manager. The principal contractor's supervisor. Which one of these is not a duty of the responsible person under the Fire Protection Association's Joint Code of Practice? To make sure that a maintenance regime for fire protection equipment is in place. To carry out weekly inspections of fire escape routes. To carry out maintenance refills of fire extinguishers. to make sure that a fire-safe working culture is promoted on site at all times. When portable or temporary lights are required, it is important that they are left plugged in when not in use, positioned next to the main power source, placed as close as possible to the work, located well away from combustible materials. Why should all main switches, other than those used to control security and safety systems, be switched off after work has stopped? To remove any potential fire risks. To reduce overall energy use on site. To extend the lifespan of equipment. To prevent a main circuit energy surge. Which one of the following pieces of information must be displayed on the fire action notice? The correct extinguisher for each type of fire. How to call the fire and rescue service. The location of the nearest fire alarm call point. Instructions for extinguishing a fire. To address security on a high-risk site, a separate risk assessment may need to be undertaken to specifically consider the need for additional parking spaces, need for arson protection, position of electric charging points, number of smoking zones. For workers who have been chosen to operate fire extinguishers in case of emergencies, it is essential that they are 1. Suitably trained in their correct use. 2. Capable of lifting the extinguishers. 3. Over the age of 25 and physically fit. 4. Able to identify the correct extinguisher for the fire. Select one option. 1 and 2 only. 3 and 4 only. 2 and 3 only. 1 and 4 only. When carrying out a safety inspection on site, you observe a disc cutter being used. Would a hot works permit be required for its use? Yes, they have the potential to cause a fire. No, sparks would not be generated from its use. Yes, all tools require a hot work permit for use. No, this tool does not generate enough heat.
Congratulations on your progress. Every step brings you closer to your goals. Keep embracing knowledge until you achieve your desired success. Look for the link in the top right corner to seamlessly transition to the next video.